Question: why do we think cameras are so important? That might seem like a very strange thing for someone who's been a professional photographer since 1993 to say. So firstly, let's get clear about something. I'm not saying cameras aren't important. They are brilliant bits of kit made by some very clever people. But so many photographers are obsessed by which is best, which is the right one for landscapes, portraits, food, cars, etc. So obsessed they spend weeks, months or years agonising over which one to buy or upgrade to. And all that agonising is taking energy away from the bit most of us love best, shooting pictures, especially pictures we're proud to have taken. Excuse me. If you're starting out with photography, all of those promises that our camera does it best made by the manufacturers are very confusing indeed. It's like standing in front of the bread shelf in the supermarket. You know, there's 8 different wholemeal breads. You've got 9 granaries, crusty white, soft white, budget white, you've got budget wholemeal, then there's white wholemeal, whatever that is. Then you've got loaves with little slashes across the top, others with crisscrosses. You've got light loaves, seeded loaves, bread with added vitamins, and all the same variations are available from 10 different bread companies. Then to make matters worse, the whole thing is repeated all over again with 10 different types of brown loaf. And I don't know what the difference is between a brown loaf and a wholemeal loaf. I don't know about you, but if the bread type I already know and I want isn't available, my brain shuts down and I just stand there as my mind screams, I just want some fucking bread! But I don't know which one to get. Too much choice and too much information paralyses us. We are bombarded with information overload from all directions all the time. And what's the result? We waste hours, weeks, days and months sifting through all of it to find just that one little piece that we need. Why are we so paralysed by it? Well, it's human nature to want security, to find the best for our purpose and avoid regretting a bad choice. And all the time we spend doing this, we're not getting our sandwich made, we're not getting our photos taken, or learning new skills that will lead to the cool images we all crave. What does a camera do? If you want to get real value from this, pause the video just for a moment and write down all the things you can think of that a camera does. Okay, who paused and made a list? I so wish I knew how many of you said it takes pictures, of course. Browne, you idiot. It can focus on a subject, but does it know what in your composition the subject is, which bit to focus on? It can change shutter speed, aperture and ISO to set the exposure. But does it ever get this wrong? Have you ever had your camera repeatedly make the photo too bright or too dark? Or the wrong bit of the photo too bright or too dark? I get questions almost daily from people who've had this happen to them. It can compensate for colour casts with its auto white balance, and cameras are getting better and better at this. But have you ever taken several shots of the same subject, the same composition, and have each of the photos have a different colour cast? Why is that? Can it choose the composition? Does it know what to include or exclude in a shot, a high or low angle to shoot from? Can it arrange or align the elements in that composition to be harmonious to look at? Can it facilitate a leading line or add foreground? Does it know which shots will work best with front to back sharpness and which need a nice soft blurry background so the subject stands out? Can the camera make the lighting work great for the subject? Can a camera add textures in a landscape by introducing directional shadows and highlights? Can a camera make wrinkles on someone's face more or less prominent by changing the light? Are there settings for any of these things on your camera? Really? Is there a setting that ensures the image is taken at precisely the right moment? What Henri Cartier-Bresson called the decisive moment. That fleeting second when the clouds part and light up the pretty little cottage in the valley. That moment when the expression is perfect, the rally car is airborne and the guy is right in the middle of the puddle he's jumping over. Photography is the opposite way around to how many photographers believe it to be. Cameras don't take pictures. They do a fantastic job of recording light onto a sensor and storing a moment in time as an image. But that's all they do. Everything I just mentioned is not what the camera does, it's what the photographer does. It's like Leonardo da Vinci's paintbrushes. Did they paint the Mona Lisa, or did Da Vinci use them to paint the Mona Lisa? There's a very, very big difference there. So how important is your camera? Well, obviously you can't take pictures without it, but how important is the make, brand or model? On a basic level, it isn't, because they all do what they are designed to do, and they do it fantastically well. There are some subtle differences. Some have more dynamic range, more pixels, better low light performance, and generally the more money you spend, the better these things become. But will any of these things improve your photography for you? Or will they just give you better image files that can be cropped into more or enlarged bigger when you shoot in low light at a high ISO? Will they have any impact over how interesting, exciting or emotive these low light, high ISO, high resolution images will be? So why do we spend so much time in a state of confusion agonizing over which camera to buy? It's to avoid the realization that it's us who are important. It's us who have to tell the camera what photos we want it to take. It's us who chooses composition, light, focal length, cropping, negative space, depth of field, how light, how dark, and loads of other things about every single photo we take. But we don't like to accept that, because it can lead to disillusionment when the photo doesn't turn out quite as amazing as we'd hoped it would do. For some, that can be crushing enough to make them give up. That's why there's loads of hardly used, great condition second-hand kit available. So what's the solution? So what is the solution? It depends on where you are on your own photographic journey. If you're starting out in this exciting, fulfilling world of image making and just want to shoot interesting images of all kinds of things, it's more important to learn how to control the stuff we've just talked about than it is to agonize over which brand or model of camera. Just buy a second-hand one that you can afford. A couple of zooms covering 18 to 50 and 50 to 200 millimeters, and just get out there, get shooting, get practicing, watch some videos and get going. To help you choose, go to a store if possible and try a few out. See how they feel in your hand, see if the controls are easy for you to get to. I know stores are becoming fewer and further between these days as shops move increasingly online, but we can usually find a way to try things out if we really want to. If you're into sports or night photography, you'll need to spend more money on a wide aperture f2.8 lens and cameras that can shoot great quality files at 2000 or more ISO. There are plenty of websites out there like dpreview.com that'll tell you which cameras can do this. If you're in a shop, they can help you as well. If your camera is worn out and needs replacing, but has given great service and produced just what you want, go with whatever replaces it. I mean, why change brands? I'd stick with the same brand so you don't have to buy more lenses. The important thing is not to get bogged down in confusion and inaction like I do when confronted with too much bread. The camera won't improve your photography for you. I promise you, it's more beneficial to upgrade the photographer by practicing, learning and growing than it is to upgrade your kit. Don't sit behind the TV watching drivel just because it's raining. Get yourself a challenge. Find 5 ways to photograph rain through the living room window. Get some cutlery out and set yourself a composition challenge using window light. So how do you go about setting yourself a challenge? Well, here's one I set myself on one of our Iceland workshops. We'd hiked out to a rocky viewpoint. It's out on the coast. Just as we got there, a snowstorm just obliterated everything. So we trudged back to the bus, take shelter. So whilst there, I set myself a challenge to shoot the snowstorm. But what I wanted to capture was what it felt like to be there, what it felt like to be in it. And I had to experiment and ask myself questions that I could act upon. So, question, how do I keep snow off the lens? Well, the answer to that was use the bus as a windbreak so the snow blows past me, not onto me. How do I compose this? Because there are very few features around here and it would look really, really boring if it was all just sky. Well, what about that rock? There was a rock over there. Just use that negative space, put the storm into. Should I blur the snow's movement or freeze it so it's stock still? Again, I don't know. Why not try both and see what works? You'd be amazed how often this is an answer to a question. Try and see. What shutter speed will I need to blur or freeze that movement? I don't know. Try some, see what works. Would it look better vertical or landscape? I don't know. Try it and see. Experiment. Try stuff out. Instead of sitting in the van, which was, I confess, far more inviting, the time was used productively, learning more about capturing the feeling of a snowstorm. And getting a couple of great pics out of it too. They might not win awards, but they sure as hell captured what I thought it was like to be out there in that snow, in the cold, and they made some great holiday snaps. The key here is not to get too hung up about which kit is best and get trapped in indecision. To keep going and thinking. Stop worrying so much about which camera takes the best pictures of people, of landscapes, of snowstorms. They can all do it. Of course your camera is important because it records light and form for you, but it's not as important as you are. Like Leonardo's brushes, it needs you behind it, telling it what to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified each time we upload one of our cool photography videos, or for more great photo tips, workshops and training, come and see us at our website, photographycourses.biz.